Okay, let's look at the history of cartoons, of comic books and cartoons in America, right? First cartoons in America, comics, 100 plus years ago.
Yep.
One panel editorial kind of cartoons.
Or the big Buncher McKay sort of stuff.
Exactly. Turns into the Sunday comics section that the newspapers use to build circulation. 20s, 30s, people start making comic books. They take the stuff that was in the newspapers and start releasing them as comic books. You start to get all kinds of interesting stuff coming out, both in the animation side and on the comic book side. We go off to war, World War II, we come back, the GIs want to keep, reading comics. We have True Detectives, and we have, this kind of thing with the lady with the, in a slip on the cover. And then this one, oh my gosh, it looks like that man might be trying to do something romantic with that lady. Well, what happened? Comics go to America. Where did the comics go to America come from?
I actually don't know.
Kefauver Commission. Do you realize what the driving force of juvenile delinquency is in America today in the 1950s, son? It's those damn comic books. They're rocking the minds of our youth.
Boy, does that sound familiar.
Hey, so hold that thought. So 50s is comic books that are rotting the youth of America. And then in the 60s, it's rock and roll music that's rotting the youth of America. And then, I don't know, the 80s, it's like, now this is rap music stuff that Tipper Gore is so upset about, right? And we got to put advisory labels on. And then now, maybe it's those violent video games that are a problem.
Awful.
We have a series of products in America which have been the whipping boys for outrage as to what the youth of today are doing. There's a guy called Dr. Wertheimer, I think his name was. He was the one who wrote a book about how comics were poisoning the brains of young people. And then the Kefauver Commission hearings were held so that politicians could get a lot of free press time. And they're going to do something about the moral decay in America in the 1950s. Which, when I look back to the 1950s, when I grew up, I didn't see a lot of moral decay myself. That caused the creation of the Comics Code Authority, and without that basic stamp on the cover, you could not sell it through national retail chains. You could not sell it through newsstands. Why? Because those people knew that if they sold something with the comic code, they'd be okay.
Yeah.
If they sold something without the comic code, they might get sued. So it was a pressure technique by the U.S. government to, if you will, infantilize the comic book media.
Right.
This did not happen in France, Spain, Italy, Japan, etc., where they just kept making comic books.
Right.
Oh, you used to be 12. Well, we'll make a comic book aimed at a 12-year-old. Oh, now you're 21. We'll make a comic book aimed at that. Oh, you're into sports. Well, let's have a comic book series on soccer. Let's have one on basketball. Let's have one on... As the market grew, so did the sophistication of the comic medium. Since animation tended to spring from comics, that affected in America the concept that if you're watching a cartoon, you must be a child because adults don't watch this crap.
Right.
Period.
Crumb and Ralph Bakshi and guys like
Fritz
that.
the Cat, but that stood out by itself for what, a 10-year period? It's like the only X-rated comic.
Yeah, and they were hugely controversial.
Very controversial. They got shut down, they got banned, they got all kinds of things. That shows that the American mentality was so absolutely different from the Japanese mentality concerning what is suitable content for a particular medium. This is a piece of paper with pictures.
Yeah.
This piece of paper with pictures can have all kinds of pictures, stories, and characters. Some might be for an 8-year-old. Some might be for an 18-year-old. Some might be for a lonely 45-year-old. The medium is a piece of paper with pictures on it.
Yeah.
We do not say because this is a piece of paper with pictures on it, it can only have this content. We're the only country that came up with that concept. Anyway, that was enough to get some of the retailers to say, hey, that stuff will probably work in my audience, right? Mm-hmm. So you went to Big and Tedder conventions, went to Comtron conventions, went to Ingram conventions. We sent our salespeople out to talk to retailers. We spent a very large amount of time trying to educate people that you will make a lot of money if you do this right. And the way to do it right is to bring in a lot of anime and have a section called anime. The concept was very simple. If you as a video retailer wish to build this audience, you have to have repeat consumers. People have to rent one, say, I like it, come back, rent another. It all has to be in the same area. You can't put this one over here in the sports section. You can't put this one over here. So we educated them that this is a genre. It has to be treated as a genre. And if you treat it as a genre, you will develop an audience that will keep coming back, buying, renting, etc., and you can keep expanding. And that, in order to implement that strategy, that's why we started to distribute our competitors. So we had more product, because we couldn't afford it. I was an indie. I started on my kitchen table. Totally separate origin story in itself. Idea that we as CPM by ourselves would have enough ability to create the catalog instantly was crazy. We didn't have that kind of money. So we went to U.S. renditions and said, you're selling your stuff in a couple of stores, some comic book stores, your stores. Why don't we take you into the video world? So we began distributing them. We signed up with Animator. We signed up with AD Vision. Basically everybody, we, because of our background in the home video world, can get you into these markets you can't get into by yourself. And if we all group up together, right, we can each have our slices of the pie, but we'll make the pie bigger and bigger. Most of the people got it. Some didn't, but that's really the strategy that worked, because again, it ties in with the fact that it is a market consistent product, right? Once you find an audience for anime, chances are they will keep being interested in new anime releases.
Yeah.
And for that, you need a flood of product. It has to be constantly new, some, constantly being refreshed. So it took us a couple of years, but we got to the point where we were the largest distributor of Japanese anime. We, Censorship Media. And by that time, the flip side had started to kick in, which is once we got somebody's product into the wholesalers, into the retail stores, into their computer systems, they didn't need us. We went from CPM being, hey, we need you guys and you need us, we all need to band together to create the inroads, to, okay, AD Vision, Animago, whatever, you're in these stores already, now you can cut out the middleman, us.
Right.
So that is, if you will, the second phase of the anime home video. And then bunch of new companies that started coming in because they were able to, because by then people knew, oh, anime, you're going to do anime supplier? Yeah, I need to do anime supplier.
What's striking to me about this era is that you came at this from a very professional, you've been doing this for years point of view. Mm-hmm. Most of the other anime companies...
we're fanboys.
Exactly. You had to look at what they were doing to a certain extent and go, guys, that's not how it's done. You're not going to get very far. Was that something that came up at all?
The education took place on both sides. We had to educate the retailers that, no, anime is not porno.
Right.
Get that out of your mind.
Right.
Right? So that was one kind of education. As I mentioned, it's a genre. You have to keep it all in the same section. You have to pitch it as anime, not like the name of today, Evangelion. You're not selling Evangelion, you're selling anime.
Right.
Right? Get the customers to come to your stores. So that was one kind of education. The other kind of education was our suppliers. Do you know what release date means? Right?
Right.
Release date is the day the store releases the product. To make that happen, the store must have your product
Right.
before release day. And in order for them to actually put it in their systems, they need to know before street date, release date, they need to know, the title, how long it is, the UPC number, right? Mm-hmm. On the book side, the ISBN number, right? Like who directed it, this, and like certain information, like category.
Right.
Is this, young kid stuff? Is this romance? Is this sports? Is this what? And you have to give this to them ahead of time. It helps if you have a picture of the cover of the video.
Right.
Guys, it really helps out if you give them a picture of the cover.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like what was really fascinating about you'd go into like Suncoast, or you'd go into one of the major retailers that started carrying anime, Blockbuster would be a great example. They clearly knew that people wanted it, but they didn't seem to know what to do with it.
Correct.
They didn't understand it
They
at all.
didn't have a clue.
Yeah. Was it just because nobody at these companies was in the demographic, or what do you attribute that to? Just
I attribute it to a number of things. One is exactly what you said. Those people who were in those purchase decisions, merchandising positions, etc., had no clue because they were not part of the target demographic. If you want talking about movies, God, they know the entire history of Hollywood, et cetera, foreign films, fine art films, everything.
Sure.
They were very skilled in certain areas, but this was a new category to them. Put yourself in place of someone like me, right? I am now 70 years old. I hear about this thing called TikTok. What? Say what? It's big, it's huge, but a lot of folk in my demographic don't necessarily have TikTok on their phones.
Oh.
So it's just that kind of a thing. So it's that really most people were involved with something, and this is something small and different. Why in the world would they know anything about it? And what they do know about it was what they read in like the trade press, right? It said, oh, that Jap porno shit? Well, no, it's actually not that. Let me show you a number of titles and go through and give you some screeners and talk to you about this, and maybe you tell me about your audience and we'll help you figure out which titles might be best. And then after, 5 or 6 years of doing that, basically enough people, Kurt Hessler, at, I think it was Borders at the test Borders. He got the concept of manga, right? He started to bring it in, right? They brought in videos as well. So, more and more people started to work their way into the commercial industry that had an awareness of this, and that has turned into just a legitimate ongoing kind of a business. But
Right.
that process, Ted Turner once said something very important. He said, everything takes longer and costs more than you think. Perfect. That explains it all. It took longer to explain to these people what anime is, and it cost more money to educate them than you would have thought, because you tend to think if I tell this to you once, you got it. But no, that's not how it works. People need to be reminded constantly, and people are busy. And the moment the telephone call with my salesman ended, the telephone call with Paramount started, and that's more important. So nothing wrong with the situation. It's just how things are.
Just inertia.
Yes and no. Okay. Again, we're at a point in time now where a dub will outsell a sub, but there is no dub versus sub anymore, because if it's on DVD, you got them both, right? But back in the day, when it was a VHS or a beta tape, you had to choose. At the beginning, subtitles were considered to be the authentic thing, and people hated dubs. Now, going back to Streamline, I think one of the most maligned people in the anime business is, I'm happy to say, was my friend, Carl Masek. He was an incredibly intelligent individual. He was an incredible producer, but he made the cardinal error, if you will, sin to some people, of taking a bunch of different shows, editing them together, rewriting the script, and using American names and whatnot to create what he did. If Robotech had been released as subtitled original videos, nothing would have ever happened.
Right.
He created something that worked on TV and brought more people in. Most people don't want to read television, but the ones who did want to read television were the true hardcore fans. That's great, but it's a small market, and it's not going to grow. It's not going to be a mass market.
Right.
To make it a mass market, you have to have English dubs.
Meet the Americans where they're at.
Thank you. People want to watch TV, listen to TV. Now, what's interesting now is now we've gone to telephones. People really like subtitles now, because then they can just look at the phone, they don't have to hear it, and they can read what's going on.
Yep.
So it's fascinating that it's flipped. But when you look at the production cost, and everything we did at CPM was basically based on economics. I don't know if you ever saw the spreadsheets that our business affairs guys worked on. I don't believe there's any Hollywood studio that had more sophisticated Excel spreadsheets, right, than we had at CPM, because we tacked every single cost. We had them simulated so you could say, what about at this point, how many units, this, that, and the other. Tremendously sophisticated ways to know whether we should invest money in something. And a topic that we'll talk about later, I hope, is how so many people didn't do that and lost so many tens of millions of dollars stupidly.
So you get Dominion, and it's a fun title.
Yeah.
It clicks with people. But you had another one. You had a few just lined up, ready to go. Could you tell us what came next?
I think my Project 8 go next.
Yeah.
Let me grab a couple of things here.
Sure.